Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 154. I'm Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and I'm flying solo on this Wednesday, July 19th. Alex Kozora is still on vacation, a well-deserved vacation at that, this week. And I'm doing this podcast on this Wednesday. It's going to obviously be a shorter show with me flying solo here. I'll try not to stutter too much along the way here, but the reason I'm doing this is obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers announced Wednesday morning that they have signed Alex Highsmith to a 4-year contract extension that runs through the 2027 season. The early reported numbers on that is that the four-year extension, the new 4 years on top of 2023, total out at $68 million in total. Adam Schefter reports that Highsmith getting a little over $27.7 million in guarantees as part of the deal, and $38 million in total over the first 2 new years of the deal. Now, the first 2 new years of the deal, meaning 2024 and 2025, Highsmith was already had old money on the books for 2023. He was set to earn $2.743 million in 2023 prior to this extension as part of his rookie base salary for 2023, and also he had qualified for the proven performance escalator, which gave him that bump up to $2.743 million there. So once again, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this deal. We don't know a lot of specifics other than the 4 new years totaling out supposedly at $68 million. We don't know more than a little more than $27.7 million in guarantees, and the $38 million total in probably new money over the first 2 years of the deal here. I will say this about the little over $27.7 million in guarantees. It's going to be interesting to see how the actual language of this plays out with the contract, because of the Steelers normally, unless it's a top end of the market deal, they normally stay away from fully guaranteed money outside of the first year, and the a little over $27.7 million would obviously dip into first and second year money, meaning 2023 and 2024. I project that the signing bonus with this deal is probably going to be in the neighborhood of around $20 million. We'll see what his new base salary is in 2023. They might leave that alone and let that stand at $2.743 million. If indeed that's the case, and look, this is projected, it'll be close to this. It might not be exact. But based on that, it would mean a cash flow in 2023 for Highsmith of $22.743 million overall. Now, there's probably going to be roster bonuses in this thing in 2024 and 2025. And if you were to put a $5 million roster bonus for March of 2024 onto the initial 2023 projected cash flow of 22.743, that magically comes up to 27.743, which would be match the Adam Schefter report of giving him 27.7, a little over 27.7 million in guarantees. Now, obviously, that first year money is going to be guaranteed. The base salary and the signing bonus of right around 22.743. if indeed there's that $5 million roster bonus for March in there, bumping this up into the 27.743 million category, it's going to be interesting to see if that roster bonus in next March is either fully guaranteed or if it's guaranteed for skill and injury and cap purposes, which oftentimes you see in these Steelers deals when they are not top of the market kind of guys. So that's something we're looking out for when these numbers come out. Is the 27.7 million fully guaranteed, or is it just the first year money of the 22, roughly $20 million signing bonus, and let's suppose a $2.743 million base salary in there? It's not a big deal overall because, look, you don't sign a guy like this to this deal thinking you're going to cut him next off season. So even if that 27.7 million is not quote unquote fully guaranteed, it's virtually guaranteed. He's going to see it, barring something catastrophic happening there overall. So as far as the rest of the contract playing out, there's probably going to be a roster bonus, another one in 2025, probably due in March of around $4 million or so. But the way I have this broken down, at least in my projection, with the $20 million signing bonus and the 2.743 base salary in 2023, along with a roster bonus of $5 million in 2024 and a base salary in 2024 of $3 million. We'll see how close I come to that. That would give him a cash earnings of $30.743 million through 2024. By the way I have this set up, I have him earning $40.743 million through 2025. And if you subtract that old money he was due, which was the $2.743 million, you come up with 38, a little over 38.7 million. And that kind of matches what Adam Schefter reported in his tweet, saying that 38 million over the first 2 new years of the contract, which once again, the first 2 new years would be 2024 and 2025. Now, y'all are probably screaming at the podcast machine saying, well, get to the cap ramifications here. All right. Once again, we don't have the exact numbers right now, so it's all supposed speculative right now. But based on my example of a $20 million signing bonus and a base salary in 2023 of $2.743 million, that would result in a new cap charge in 2023 for Alex Highsmith of 6.951, a little over 6.951 million for 2023. Now, remember, his cap charge was originally scheduled to be 2.951073. So that if my projection is correct, which it might not be 100% on the money, it feels like the max that his cap charge in 2023 will rise is by $4 million. So you're talking about using up $4 million of available cap space at max, more than likely, as part of this deal. This should come in anywhere, and if my numbers are not exactly correct, it should come in anywhere between $3 to $4 million in an increase of a 2023 cap charge for Alex Highsmith. So once again, we're playing with a rough outline of reported numbers from Adam Schefter so far, but in working these contracts in the past over the years and the experience I have in them, my numbers are probably going to be fairly close to what the actual is, and who knows when we'll have those actuals in. With a contract this big, you'd hope by the end of the day, but it might be Monday before we know the exact parameters, and especially maybe when it comes to like what was exactly fully guaranteed on this. Now, if you're sitting there and you're a bit surprised that the Steelers got this deal done without Alex Highsmith, You shouldn't. You really shouldn't be. I mean, we've talked about it really since late last season on into this off season. It wasn't a matter of if it would get done. It was a matter of when it would get done. And quite honestly, if you all go all the way back to the first time I wrote a long post about this in the end of January of this year, I did a projected market value on him. And at the end of this article, I wrote, I think the new money average of the deal could come in somewhere between 15 and 17.25 million. Well, he was more to the higher end of that with a $17 million new money average. Now, once again, the media usually, the local media usually gets this all wrong when they talk about average yearly value. When you look at a player's contract, and you want to get a universal average yearly value, it's always related off of the new money and new years of the deal. That's how these things are calculated and ranked across the books here. So if you're looking at $68 million on a 4-year extension, because those are 4 new years, and you divide that by 4, you get a $17 million new money average, even though the total of the 5 years now will be a hair over 70 million overall there. So I just want to clarify that there's, you're going to see this thing reported by the local media different ways and twisted and turned. But for all practical purposes, when we talk about this deal, it's going to be a new money average of 17 million. And once again, that comes in on closer to the high side of my January projection of between 15 and 17.25 million dollar new money average. Now, the only real question in my head throughout, this whole offseason when it comes to an extension with Highsmith was, once again, not that if it would get done, it would be when it would get done and what would the length of it be. Are we talking about a 2-year extension on top of 2023, or are we talking about a 4-year extension, which it ended up being there? My thoughts on this was if they tried to play the bottom end of the market value of around 15 million, that it was more than likely going to be a 2-year extension. That way, Alex would, be a free agent sooner rather than later. He's giving up 2 future years at a lower price there. It really feels like with him coming in at, and once again, the $17 million new money average right now ranks him tied for 10th across the NFL. That's going to change. You know how these contracts, they usually come before the start of the regular season. He's number 10 right now on the overall edge rusher list, top to bottom. And in fact, if you look at over the cap right now, his $17 million number ties him with Shaquille Barrett and Chandler Jones, and puts him right behind a guy like Harold Landry at 17.5 and Cameron Jordan at 17.5. So the fact that he ended up in the top 10 this early before training camp got underway, not a big surprise there. I thought that could be the case, that he could potentially jump into that top 10, definitely within the top 15, but I thought he had a chance of getting in the top 10, and he did. Had they waited on getting this deal done a little bit longer, if the other Bosa and, Danielle Hunter end up getting their deals done, there was a chance that even at 17 million, he wouldn't be in the top 10. So timing, I think, played a factor in this. And my viewpoint on this as well, too, is that the higher end, we talked about the 15 to 17.25 million dollar new money average, right around in there, as being a projected kind of target for fair market value for Alex Highsmith. The fact that it came in at a higher end of the scale, it kind of feels like the Steelers bought the 2 extra years, saying, look, this will be the structure we'll give you. We'll make the new money average at 17 million. We'll make you the 10th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. But in exchange for that, We want this to be a 4-year extension instead of a 2-year extension. So splitting hairs there. Is that exactly how the conversation went with Omar Khan? Who knows? But it does feel like with him being a little bit on the higher end of that projected spectrum, that might have been the course. And look, Alex Highsmith has said for quite a while now, he wants to remain a Steeler, stay in Pittsburgh a long time, yada, yada there. So I think really the only question that got answered today that was kind of a questionable answer was, would it be a 2-year extension or would it be a 4-year extension? Obviously, with this being a 4-year extension, it's a 5-year total deal, and that allows you to stretch that signing bonus allocated out over the 5 years. Had this been a 2-year extension, you obviously could only extend it over, allocate that signing bonus up over the length of the 3 years, unless you decided to put, two void years in there, which the Steelers are usually like to now try to stay away from those void years there. But once again, the only question I think that there was going into this offseason when it comes to Highsmith was, would it be a 2-year extension or would it be a 4? And kudos to them for getting them locked up for 4 more years here. Obviously, you hope he plays out at least the first 3 years, meaning this year, 2024 and 2025, with him being so young and still an ascending player. There's no reason to think that he won't play out this entire deal, barring him going backwards, with his play now. So it made sense for both sides here. Another interesting aspect that I've talked about a few times with Alex on this show is when talking about fair market value is, look, the Steelers, like it or not, they like using that franchise tag as a weapon. Okay. I'm sure at some point Omar Khan took, I'm metaphorically speaking here, took Alex Highsmith into his office and showed him the franchise tag sword. I'm being funny here, but I mean, it is real. And here's why. Alex was obviously on the books this year to earn, in the final year of his rookie deal, $2.743 million. Had he been franchised, had he not gotten a deal this offseason or signed a deal with the Steelers there, you could be looking at a franchise tag, I don't know, let's say $22, $23 million next year. So in other words, if Alex did not sign this year and faced a franchise tag and received that franchise tag, he had the potential of being capped off. And let's just say, the franchise tag, for lack of a better word, would have been 22 million for edge rushers. He was effectively going to be capped off at earning almost $27 million over the course of the next 2 years, had he not gotten a deal done and indeed received the franchise tag. There's no guarantee he would. He could have got injured in 2023 or could have gone backward in production and lost his value. So there was no guarantee that he was going to see the franchise tag in 2024, but it's always out there as a threat against him, to use against him. So that impacts not only the cash flow in the first, two years of this deal, and actually the third year as well, because, they technically could have held over his head playing out his contract in 2023 and then franchise tagging him back to back in 2024 and 2025. So he was essentially capped out via the tag process if used from 2023, 2025, and don't think that does not get used in negotiation process. So to counteract that, you give him more money up front in 2023 specifically, because, hey, he was scheduled to earn $2.743 million. It now looks like he's going to put in his pocket around $22.743 million in 2023, and then through 2024, where he could have potentially been wearing that tag and capped out at around close to 25 million. He's probably going to have a cash flow total through 2024 now of right around probably a little bit more than $30 million. We'll see what the actual numbers say, but it should be fairly close to, I don't know, anywhere between 28 and 31 million through 2024. So don't think that the threat of the franchise tag, and that's something that I kind of planned for and wrote about, talked about throughout this offseason as well too. So don't think that that does not exist for players in the final year, specifically of their either the rookie contract or fifth year option or anything along those lines. The threat of the tag is indeed real. Both sides know that during the negotiation process here. So overall, none of this should be surprising as far as how this played out. Once again, I think now that we know the length, we know some of the parameters, it'll be interesting to see the exact signing bonus total for him. It'll be interesting to see, as I mentioned at the top here of this show, is that whatever roster bonus due him in 2024 fully guaranteed as part of that, 27.7 is being reported as guaranteed, or is that roster bonus in March guaranteed for injury, skill cap reasons there? So that's going to be interesting to find out, kind of the unknown at this point, and really just what does the overall structure look like? What exactly are the amounts of those roster bonuses in 2024, 2025? Once again, I expect this cap number to come in somewhere around 6.951 million, maybe a little bit less at the sign, depending on how much first year money he got between, the signing bonus and the base salary overall here. But looking at this, if you don't care about any of these numbers I'm rattling off here, or the cap doesn't interest you, or contract negotiations, I think the 30,000 foot takeaway here overall is this process went pretty much as expected and as predicted here, with the only question being, was this going to be a 2-year extension or a 4-year extension overall there? So nobody should be surprised. This is not going to kill the team this year from a cap standpoint. They're going to probably restructure the contract of TJ Watt later in the offseason to free up a little bit more cap space overall here. And then obviously with, if indeed, which it should be a roster bonus in 2024 with Alex Highsmith, he would then shoot to the top of the spring of 2024 likely restructure candidates here, because what they could do by the time they pay him that March roster bonus in 2024 is take that roster bonus and a chunk of his base salary down to the minimum, and then turn that into another signing bonus to help lower his 2024 cap charge, if indeed they need to clear some cap space. And we'll obviously know that by the end of this year when we get a better 30,000 foot look of where the Steelers will be setting against the cap and all. But I'll tell you right now, don't be surprised if he ends up getting his contract restructured March of 2024. This generally happens with these higher dollar deals, especially those that are 5 years in length, which in his case it is because of the 4-year extension. It would make sense that that's the path that the Steelers go, assuming Alex does not get hurt and stays, good with production, yada, yada there. So I don't know what else there is to really talk about when it comes to this, other than, I know a lot of you listening probably think that you probably think that they may have overspent here. I don't view it as that. If anything, I think you can maybe view this as a slight overspend, but I mean, it's marginal at that. Once again, I had the high side, I think, at 17.25 million. You look at his production and the advanced analytics and his tape, the more importantly, the tape, and it all called for, a new money average of between 15 and 17.25 million overall. So if you want to argue, Dave, I think this is a slight overpay here. Okay, I could stomach that, but once again, you get a young player still seemingly on the rise here. You're not going to have any more guaranteed money tied up, past probably the roster bonus in 2024. You could see this deal coming a mile away. And I think it's a fair deal overall. The fact that he didn't hit the top end that I had projected, I view it as a fair deal. And now the proof will be in the pudding, right? He's got to go up and follow up the great season that he had last season with the Steelers there. I think he's very capable of hitting double digit, really middle, 13, 14, 15 sacks, I think is very obtainable for him in 2023, especially if Watt stays healthy, especially if Cameron Hayward stays healthy, especially if Larry Ogunjobi stays healthy here. Another predictive thing that kind of helped me form a value on this, and I've written and talked about it as well too, is this is the third year of the CBA cash expenditures period here. So you kind of we had a good idea of what the Steelers had spent in cash in the previous 2 years, plus all the way through free agency this year. We know that the CBA dictates that teams must spend 90% of the total salary cap number across 3 years, these 3 years in cash. We also know that the Steelers were probably likely to spend in the 100% category of the 3-year span of cap in cash. And in doing all the math associated with it, it called for first-year money right along with what it looks like this is going to be with Alex Highsmith. So that was another thing we had going for us when trying to predict market value and contract structure and cash flow and all like that, was the fact that the Steelers were in the third and final year of this 3-year span. When you're dealing with the first year of a 3-year span, it makes it kind of tough because you don't know, are they going to want to spend, 110% to help alleviate on the back end of the 3 years? Are they going to want to kind of be, a little conservative and then make up the spending in their plan in the final 2 years? You just don't know. But when you have the first 2 years of a 3-year span on paper and you've got an idea of what they're probably going to spend percentage wise with that, it makes it a lot. We got lucky, and that once again, this what Alex Highsmith's projected contract, in my opinion, and I've done this for quite a while now, and I'm obviously constantly learning little things here and there along the way. You can never stop learning too much about this stuff, but this was one of the easier ones in my mind to project here, with once again the only huge question being was it going to be a 2 or a 4-year extension? We got the answer today on that with a 4-year extension. So I thought I'd record a nice little, I don't know, how long did I go, 15, 20 minutes here podcast for you to discuss this deal. Obviously on the Friday show, I think Jonathan Heitritter and Josh Carney will join me again. We'll talk more about it and the impact of it and everything related to that on the Friday show. And obviously when Alex Kozora gets back next week on Monday, we'll talk a little bit more about it as well too. But all I can say right now is through the rest of the weekend, or at least until Friday morning, if the actual numbers of this deal do get reported, I'll have a post up on Steelers Depot about it so you can see the cap impact. And once again, I expect Alex Highsmith's 2023 number to go up anywhere between 3 and 4 million. That should be the range there. And we'll talk more about it on Friday. So Hope you enjoyed this quick and dirty episode of the Terrible Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave, with me, myself, and I. Good day.